Welcome to another edition of the Invisible Wheelchair Interview Podcast. I'm Donald Grodoff, family coach with FamilyOCD.com, FocusedHealthyFamily.com, and of course, InvisibleWheelchair.com. In the Invisible Wheelchair interviews, I get the wonderful chance to interview some of the experts with obsessive compulsive disorders, professionals that treat OCD, people who are going through or have been through OCD, parents and caregivers of those suffering from OCD, and of course anyone that advocates for treatment of OCD. My goal of these interviews is to inform people on all aspects of OCD and bring about awareness of obsessive compulsive disorder. The content, information, resources, and ideas that are talked about and brought up here in these interviews are not necessarily the views and opinions of myself, Family OCD, Focused Healthy Family, and Invisible Wheelchair Podcast, and I always recommend to seek additional professional help in finding solutions for yourself. You can find out more about me at FamilyOCD.com, FocusedHealthyFamily.com, and InvisibleWheelchair.com. Today I have the honor of introducing Shauna-Leigh Davies. Shauna is 19 years old from Wales, UK. She is studying barbering level 2 full-time. Her OCD has always come up for short periods during her childhood and would only last just a few months. Everything seemed to change when she turned 16 years old. OCD hit her hard. Ever since, she has continued to suffer from pure O and realized that pure O is a hidden form of OCD that not many are aware of. She helps others to understand by explaining pure O consisting mostly of mental obsessions and mental compulsions with intrusive thoughts. Believe it or not, she has never had the cleaning OCD, which is what everyone thinks OCD is. She loves nature and exercises such as yoga and walking. She has practiced yoga since she was 15 years old. OCD has impacted the way she lives, so there are times when she has to lie in bed and sleep to put off thinking, so OCD will leave her alone. She loves her spirituality, not religion, believing that there is a meaning to life and we can find it within ourselves. Her priority is to be kind to herself and to others. She believes the universe helps us all to find ourselves. Her passion is to help others struggling with OCD, and today, by telling her story, she hopes to do just that. Now, let's go to that interview. So Shauna, thank you so much for joining us on the Invisible Wheelchair Podcast. I'm grateful that you're here and willing to talk.
Hello, I'm very grateful to be here.
So if you would, Shauna, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself. I always like to give my audience a little peek into the personal part of whoever's being interviewed here. So if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, that would be great.
Well, I'm 19 years old and I come from Wales, UK, South Wales to be specific, and I study barbering. I'm a full-time barbering student at the moment at college. I love to practice yoga. I love to exercise. Exercise is a real key part of my life to keep me healthy. I love spirituality. I'm not religious in the sense, I just believe that there is a power in the universe to connect ourselves with, and it can really find who we are inside. I have a passion to help people who are struggling with OCD. It is my dream to be an OCD activist, OCD ambassador, etc. I really want to make a difference in how mental health stigma is in today's society. and I want to help people who are struggling with OCD come out of the dark, who are ashamed or who are too afraid to go for help or to tell their family members and friends, etc. I live with my boyfriend at the moment, and I have struggled with OCD since I was 16 years old. And now I'm in therapy. I have a coach, an OCD coach, and my life is so much better since I've been having therapy. It's made me see that recovery is possible if you put in the consistency and the hard work. And basically my mission is to help people with OCD and to raise awareness. And yes, that is why I'm here to do this podcast today and to tell my story. I've practiced yoga since I was 15 years old. I have interest in hairdressing, obviously, as I said, barbering to be specific, because January this year I actually shaved my head for a charity for Make-A-Wish, and it struck my interest to do barbering with hair. I think that's everything.
Wow, I feel bad now because I have short hair, but I didn't shave it for a purpose. But my wife actually wants me to grow it back so I can cut it for a charity. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think which one she said, but no, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. That's a beautiful story.
Thank you.
So, when did you first realize that you had OCD and that it was pure OCD? What happened?
Honestly, I didn't know straight away. I could tell you the story from the start and then how it went along, if that's okay.
No, that's fine.
Okay, so the first intrusive thought I had was actually about stabbing one of my closest friends' baby. I was 16 years old, and I felt so much anxiety and guilt for weeks and months and I still to this day feel those emotions. I felt like I should be locked up and that I was going to turn into a killer or a psychopath. And these emotions then stayed with me for a long time. And then, so this thought now was going on in my head about my friend's baby and all the guilt that came with it. And after a while then, I started to research maybe a few months after it. I didn't actually come up with pure OCD to tell everyone straight away. It actually took me about 2 years of research before I was comfortable with saying what I had. I didn't go for help straight away. I felt really in the dark, I felt like my mother was going to turn her back on me. I thought she was going to section me. I thought that I was abnormal. I thought, oh no, like this is the start of something bad. If the mother's baby finds out what I've been thinking, she would never let me go near her. She would hate me, etc. And then after a couple of weeks, it turned into other things. Then, when you hear news lines on the story about serial killers, paedophiles, thieves, etc., then the stories got into my head a lot. And then it went from not just my friend's baby, but then it went to my loved ones, my friends, and then people around me. And it really affected then my life with people. I couldn't go out anymore. I couldn't pretend like I could socialize properly, because in my head I would have all these thoughts like, kill that person, or rape that person, or hurt her baby, etc. And these thoughts would go round and round. So I would be out with people, but I would be totally not present. My mind would be in a different state. And honestly, it ruined my happiness around that time, and it took away my happiness for so long, because I feel like I couldn't speak up. I felt like I was so alone. And obviously I feel like everybody with OCD at some point, especially pure OV, feels like they can't speak up in fear of being locked away or taken away, etc. So at the start I didn't research straight away because I felt like I couldn't. I felt like no one else would have this. But after a while, I'd say about a few months into it, when more thoughts were coming, I was like, there has to be an answer for this. I was never like this. I was never brought up to be like this. And I just typed into Google the kind of thoughts I was having, and then it would guide me on the search page to intrusive thoughts, and then I was reading articles about intrusive thoughts, other people's experiences, and all that kind of thing. And then I saw on like different articles and that it was actually linked to a disorder called POO. And I was like everybody else. I didn't know there was a form of OCD that could be other than cleaning. I was actually surprised myself. I thought, oh my gosh, this sounds a lot like what I have. Let me do some more research and then let me make a verdict to see if I think I definitely have this. Because if I do think I have this, then I can go to the GP and so far on. I did go to the doctors around, I think a few months after it, but I was telling her my thoughts, and she said she couldn't put me on any medication because I was too young. I was 16, so she told me no antidepressants or anything. She just recommended me to have herbal teas and stuff. Then she did send me to a mental health referral, and I had an assessment with a mental health nurse, but I didn't speak up about everything. I was so afraid. No one else knew. I went to the doctors on my own. So the proper help wasn't put in place for me, and I never actually ended up getting any help then, because she put me up for counselling, but I thought, no, this doesn't work. I need proper OCD related therapy. And so I kept it quiet for about another year or two. Then I went for proper help. This year I went to the GP, and then the GP put me on antidepressants. I'm currently on sertraline 150 mg. I went for help in May. It's now October, and I've had an assessment. I'm currently getting, they're doing like a mental health plan for me to try and provide me with the correct therapy. I don't know how long it'll take because it's on NHS therapy. But on the private therapy, I did start paying for it in early August, and it's changed my life. It's given me such an open view to how OCD and the human brain connect, and how intrusive thoughts make their way in, etc. And it's made me realise that there is hope at the end of the tunnel. I struggle with, there's different themes of OCD, PRO, and I struggle with violent and harm OCD, which is about, harmful thoughts to yourself and to others. I struggle with sexual OCD, which makes you question your sexuality and anything to do with sex, obviously. It can make you very anxious in sex because you worry about if you're doing things right, or what your body looks like, or you're pleasuring your partner right. I suffer with paedophile OCD, which honestly I think is the worst. I think it's the one that I have most shame about, which obviously is harmful thoughts or sexual thoughts about children. And I also like to highlight, this isn't a theme as such, but I do get random names or random numbers or random phrases, and I get flashbacks a lot too. Basically, so for an example, my boyfriend told me about the number 4 is bad luck in Chinese beliefs a few months ago, and then I've avoided the number 4 ever since. Cannot do anything in 4s, honestly, the number 4 freaks me out. But my ERP homework now is actually to try and do things in 4s to show me, honestly, to show me that the number 4 isn't going to hurt me. It's okay. But yeah, that is pretty much how I've got here. So I was a little 16-year-old girl, felt very ashamed of herself, felt like she was going to be locked away. Kept quiet about it for 3 years now, and I'm finally getting the help I need. In the UK, there's a thing called NHS, which is what I described about. It's free help basically, but the problem with it is there's so long waiting lists because it's not funded enough. So, so it's for people, it's children, teenagers and adults who can't afford it. So they've put for free help, but the waiting lists are atrocious, and some people are actually left for around 6 months to a year just to get a mental health plan. So that's why I started to pay for therapy. I was like, no, I cannot live like this any longer. It's coming out of my savings. So because I don't work at the moment. I don't feel like I have the mentality to work. I don't have the right behaviour. I did have two temporary Christmas jobs, and I was basically told my behaviour was unsatisfactory. I thought I was really good. I thought I was keeping my OCD under control, but they told me, I was zoning out too much. Customers were unhappy. I didn't make much conversation. Sometimes I'd actually have tears in my eyes because I'd have intrusive thoughts when serving customers. I took too many bathroom breaks to calm down. It's not in the house. That's fine, obviously, but you can't be like that in a professional place.
Yeah.
You can't act like that. So until I feel like I'm at a good place in recovery, then I'll go back to it. I'm not lazy. I promise I'm not lazy.
Well, let me so yeah, and I understand, because I think that can be a prejudice that anybody with OCD can fall into. People prejudice it because they think that you're not smart, or that whatever, and so I understand that. So I think it would be good for you to describe for the audience what pure O really means, and what it's like.
Oh God. Okay.
It's a lot. So
basically, from what I've learned from all the research and from my own experiences, I've learned that pure OCD is a bully. It attacks everything that you fear and everything that you love. So, for example, I'm petrified of serial killers and rapists, pedophiles, that kind of thing. So OCD has found that to latch onto, and then it twists it around in your brain, makes you think that you're one of them, or that you'll turn into them. Anything that you hear that you fear or that scares you, OCD will pick itself onto. I've just learned that our brain, it doesn't react to fear very well, and it doesn't react to what we can't control very well. So every time it sees something that we're afraid of, it thinks that we're in danger, and then it sets false alarms off in your head, which is why obviously we do compulsions. Compulsions can be anything that will stop the anxiety, but it's only for short term until another thought comes along. So the thoughts are the obsessions, which go around in your brain all the time, and then the compulsions come along, which you do to decrease the anxiety. But as my coach said, the compulsions actually do nothing in the long run. It just goes on a loop, and you never recover. Pure O, I would like to describe, is the mental type of OCD, because everybody knows the physical type of OCD, which they refer to as cleaning, etc., checking, tapping, contamination, etc. But pure O is the mental form, and people don't know about it. I'm actually really surprised how many people have it, but how many people don't know about it. Because there's quite a lot of people, there's so many people like me, and I was like, wow, this really exists. And
well, the difference too, I think, and I want to kind of make kind of the clarity there, is that and I'm trying to remember where you would put it, about that the compulsions, you still have compulsions, but they're just compulsions in your head. They're not something more physical. I mean, you're not checking doorknobs or necessarily. I mean, it sounds like you've gone into some other OCD types that you probably have done some physical compulsions to. I don't know if that's true or not. But Puro just really, and so the compulsions that go in your head, are they just other thoughts trying to derail the so-called bad thoughts? Is that what it?
Well, basically, so my compulsion is about horrible and uncomfortable thoughts. My compulsions consist of reassurance, which is asking my boyfriend, am I a good person? Should I deserve to be locked up? Do I deserve to live, etc.? It's seeking that self-worth through somebody else. Googling and researching and reading for periods of time to find meaning to your thoughts. So, for example, because I researched that about... Sorry, I'm just trying to get my words.
It's okay. Take your time.
because that when we research to find meaning and we see that other people also struggle with the same things, then that gives us a sense of relief that we're not abnormal. But this has to stop, because when we search for meaning and reassurance, self-worth through other people's experiences, we'll never learn how to be content in ourselves, because we keep searching for other people's experiences, or what they've gone through, to try and cover up our own experiences. And another compulsion I have is avoidance. So this is a really bad one. I avoid going out so I won't be faced with triggers. But I've obviously that has stopped now. I'm going out quite a lot since I've been in therapy. Basically, if someone is afraid that they'll hurt a child, or they'll sexually abuse a child, then they have to spend time with children. They have to walk by primary schools, obviously not in a creepy way, but they have to be comfortable with just walking near something that has children in. So then the compulsions disappear, and what the exposures do, the exposures are what you face your fears with. You realize that you're not going to hurt them, and all it is your brain it's in fight or flight mode. It's just setting false alarms off. It's making sure that you don't hurt these people. And that's what exposures do, is just to learn that you're okay, you're safe, and you won't act out on these thoughts or what you're scared of. Nothing bad is going to happen. And I just like to point out that OCD people are actually the people that are least harmful, because they care so much about their thoughts. Because I read something that a paedophile or serial killer or anything along those lines, they feel no guilt, they feel no stress, they feel no anxiety, because their pleasures are what their thoughts are. They're based on their satisfaction and their happiness. Obviously, there's the people who realize that they need help and they do actually go for therapy, which is a different thing. But for the people who actually commit crimes, they feel no remorse, whereas an OCD sufferer basically hates themselves over their thoughts. They want them to go away so badly that their life is ruled by compulsions. And it just shows that OCD sufferers are not going to hurt anyone or do anything bad, or nothing's going to happen to them, because why would someone who is so worried about their thoughts act on them? It just doesn't make sense.
Well, and I saw in my daughter that there was this, it was kind of like there was something down deep inside of that still kind of managed that, that there was still a caring enough to know that they didn't want to even harm themselves, let alone anybody else. So so what I wanted to ask you is, I guess kind of the last question is, have you seen this affect relationships? And that's something that I really have been trying to even get some married couples on there that are dealing with it, to know how it's affecting different types of relationships, whether it be friend, parent, boyfriend, whatever.
Yeah, this is actually really hard for me to talk about, because I'm going through this at the moment. My mother, she saw my article. So if anybody who's listening now to the podcast when it gets released, I did an article with The Sun about my OCD to raise awareness. My mother found it and she went berserk. She told me that I'm sick, that I'm disgusting, that I need to be locked away. And she actually called the police to my boyfriend's house. I don't live with her. I've lived with my boyfriend for a year and a bit now. But she called the police to the house. Obviously, in her mind, she does care about me. She wants me to get help. But in just not a rational way. I've told her about that I have something wrong with me. I told her that I don't function like a normal person. I want to put it in like that. And I've given her resources like books written by doctors and psychiatrists. I've given her websites to OCD charities. I've given her other people's experiences. Articles have also opened up, but she doesn't want to open her mind to them. So at the moment we're not speaking, and it's totally okay with me, because I don't want someone in my life who doesn't want to support me. I know she cares about me, I know she's worried, but until she educates herself, she'll never be able to help me.
Yeah.
So I can't have her in my life at the moment because it's too toxic for my recovery. She keeps weighing me down. So that's a heartbreaking one, but that's being sorted, and hopefully in the future she will educate herself and we can make contact again. The police actually just did a 5-minute interview, just made sure I was okay, made sure that I'm getting help, made sure that I'm not a danger, etc. It was really quick and they left.
With your boy, and now with your relationship,
this isn't so much heartbreaking, but it's definitely took a toll on the love we have for each other. My boyfriend, I came at a time, definitely at the start of this year, up until about July, August, before I started getting private therapy. He was making sure I ate, he was making sure I washed, he was making sure that I was just doing the bare minimum. Literally, he'd have to make me food or I wouldn't eat because OCD made me so anxious. I literally would, I couldn't eat my food. I was basically thriving off liquids, so like smoothies and drinks and stuff, which is easy to take in, and yogurts, that kind of thing. He was making sure that I was bathing, making sure that I was brushing my teeth, and that was just the bare minimum. He would literally have to drag me out of the house just to go out, and I would cry, actually. I wrote something about my experience that basically I opened up to him about my OCD in December last year. I thought he was going to leave me, but he wanted to support me and I was so grateful. But I just felt like, because I opened up to him then, the world was going to fall apart. I felt like I wasn't the perfect girlfriend that he sees because I kept it all inside. And then my symptoms started to show them because I felt comfortable with him knowing. I started to lock myself in our bedroom, and it was just a horrible time. I carried so much anxiety with me that I couldn't complete simple tasks, which is why he had to force me. I went from bathing every day, showering every day, to sometimes once a week, every 5 days, etc. I'd wake up in a state of panic. I'd go to bed in a state of panic. I couldn't sleep. I wouldn't eat much. I lost a lot of weight, actually. My ribs were starting to show through, but thankfully I've put it back on. I was so consumed by these thoughts and, that I was going to do something bad or that I was a bad person. I just felt like it was just easier to lock myself away and go to sleep so I wouldn't have to live through the pain of being awake. And when we went out together, I would zone out quite often. I'd start to sweat, my legs start to shake, and then I'd have to go somewhere alone, like the toilet, or with my partner to calm down. And he became like my personal guardian. He had to come everywhere with me. There would be times when I went out that I would cry my eyes out to go home because I couldn't deal with the pressure of being out and being faced with all these triggers. Mm-hmm. And honestly, it felt like, I know that he was too nice to tell me, but I could tell that he was shutting down. He was not only looking after himself, he was looking after another person. He's only 20, bless him. He's quite young. By the way, we don't live like in our own house. I live with his mother and his family, basically. They took me in because I was already having problems with my mother. She doesn't approve of him because he's Polish, but that's a different matter. So that's why I moved out in the first place. Yeah, he became just like basically my mother, but in boyfriend form. And
but in a good form, though. It sounds like supportive. That's great. Yeah.
But it just got to a point where I couldn't do anything for myself, and it took a lot of forcing him to literally tell me, "You got to do things yourself, or you're gonna be dependent on me forever. What if we break up one day? What are you gonna do? You're just gonna die because you didn't learn how to get better." So he told me a week before, he said, "You've got to get better. You can't live on like this anymore because it's toxic."
Yeah. Well, that. It sounds wonderful. It sounds like that's a very supportive relationship for us. So I'm really glad for that. So, well, the last thing I want to do is, if somebody was interested in learning more about you, I believe you told me you have an Instagram.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to tell them how they can read a little more about you, learn a little bit more about you, uh,
I have an
share that with us if you would, please.
I have an Instagram. It's called Live Life with OCD. I also have a YouTube channel. I'm fairly new to it, only just started uploading videos, but I'm basically talking about my experience and tips that have helped me. I just want to make it clear I'm not a therapist, nowhere near a therapist.
No.
But it's just tips that have helped me on my personal journey, and if anyone can benefit from them, then that's why I post these videos. The channel is called Shauna-Leigh. I'm pretty sure if you just type in Shauna-Leigh OCD, it'll come up straight away. But yeah, that's how you can reach me, and I respond to all of my messages in comments. So if you would like to ask me a question, or just if you need any support, then I will respond to you straight away.
That's wonderful, and I'll too. If you're going to send me that information, I'll make sure to have it up on the Invisible Wheelchair site too, for people to find.
Great.
So Shauna-Leigh, thank you first off for being vulnerable and willing to be able to share the information. You've shared some really wonderful stuff, and I'm sure through that sharing, you're going to be able to help somebody along the way. And if you can help one person, it's a great thing, So. Yeah. Thank you so much for being part of this.
And thank you for letting me be here. It's such an amazing opportunity. I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much.
This concludes this podcast. We really would appreciate your comments. Simply leave a comment at www.invisiblewheelchair.com. There, you're able to submit a comment that will help us determine future podcasts. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the podcast, please email don@invisiblewheelchair.com. Remember, there is a corresponding tapping recording for each of the podcasts, with the exception of the interview podcast. You can find these tapping recordings and archive past podcasts at www.invisiblewheelchair.com. Finally, there is relief for OCD, and we at FamilyOCD.com and FocusedHealthyFamily.com can help you find that relief. Again, you can contact us through those sites, FamilyOCD.com or FocusedHealthyFamily.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Invisible Wheelchair Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at InvisibleWheel1, that's the number 1, or at FamilyOCD. So thank you for listening. Keep tapping and transcending your life to new heights.